Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Joel Madden, and this is Artist Friendly. On this episode, I'm talking with Australian alt-pop sensation Maya. Her new EP, Analysis Paralysis, is out now. We'll be talking about that and a bunch of other things. Let's go.
I don't want no bad times. I don't want to have bad.
Maya?
Yeah.
I always say Maya.
I think a lot of people do.
Is that an American thing?
There.
Is it an American thing?
No, people in Australia say Maya as well.
Were you called Maya all the way? That's very, I feel like it's very Aussie to like change the way you say a word that reads.
I don't know why my parents did it to me. It's super annoying.
It's great, actually. I prefer Maya.
Really?
So welcome.
Thank you.
How's it going?
Thank you for having me. It's going well. I'm happy to be here.
Do you live in LA?
Not really. Just kind of in and out.
Okay.
Every now and then.
Do you live in Australia still?
Kind of.
Cool.
Yeah.
You live everywhere because you're touring.
Yeah,
and stuff.
that's the vibe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be living out here though.
You're gonna move out here?
Yeah.
It's a great place to make music. If you're making music all the time and making stuff all the time, LA is a great place to like. And then to get around the world, it's a little harder from Australia.
Definitely.
As a touring artist.
Yeah, yeah.
So Australia is great for a lot of things creatively, but when you're touring, like it looks like you're starting to kind of like just tour all the time.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Whenever you get a tour, just go pick up your bags and go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is harder from Australia, especially like all my band is in Australia.
Oh, wow.
So like flying 4 people out from Australia to the other side of the world.
It's so expensive.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. I don't think people realize how expensive touring is.
Especially support stuff. People think that
the
main act pays for everything, which is
and you don't
ridiculous.
get paid that much.
No.
Support you. That's the whole point of like. That's why a lot of artists need labels because it's tour support. It isn't even making records. It doesn't cost that much these days.
Yeah.
I mean, records can cost a lot. It depends, but touring is probably the most expensive aspect until you get a business that's turning over enough money to break even, which is, I don't think people realize.
No, you're getting $500 a show and one flight is like $1,000 to get out.
Terrible. Like, that's tough.
Yeah. But it's, I don't know, I'm glad that, I have the tour support. There's so many great artists that just like can't do it. Because you can make a record on a budget. You can't tour on a budget, really. You
can be resourceful with making music for sure. You can, these days, I think music is essentially zero to no cost if you're really resourceful and creative. You have your friends, you have people, like artists, we find our way around and we meet other artists and we all end up collaborating and then we figure it out. And if there's money, we split it. If there's not, we're all like, whatever, like get it out.
Yeah.
That's kind of, I feel like how real artists work. As you get bigger, it gets harder because things get more complicated because there's more and more people involved but if you're creative, you can start your career as an artist by just creating.
Yeah.
But then trying to go out in the world and tour, that's the most expensive part.
100%.
It's tough. I don't know how you guys do it.
It's definitely hard. How was it for you when you were touring?
It was the same.
Yeah.
This is expensive. When we started was 1996. We were in a minivan.
Yeah, classic.
Like a little Astro, Chevy
how rock
Astro.
Is that though? Like
and the door was broken. So we had to go in through the back.
Oh my God.
Or the front 2 doors.
Did you have to pull your gear in?
So the sliding door was broken. You know how they used to have the sliding doors? The sliding door was broken. We had the 2 front doors and the back door. So we would load all the gear in because we had the bench seat in the back out and we had the plate stuff for the gear. This is when we first started touring. And then we would all go in through the front doors and there was one bench seat in the middle and 2 seats in the front and we'd always just cram in.
That's so funny.
And then we made that van because that was like a van we got for nothing.
Oh, you bought it?
Yeah. I mean, before we were signed, we were just selling our little CDs like at our shows. And then we got signed in 99. And out of that, we bought like a 13-passenger nice van.
It's smart to buy a van.
Yeah. And then we had a trailer. We bought it. And we put 500,000 miles on that.
Oh my God.
Touring, like we just drove around the US and just toured.
Jesus.
and would play any show. It was probably 99. We were touring in vans with Sum 41 before anyone knew who either one of us really were. And we were playing like bars and little clubs, probably like 200 cap, 300 cap. Some shows would be like sold out or almost sold out. Some shows there'd be like 150 people there, depending on the city. I think, and we were in vans just touring around. Like that was it. We were just in vans. And then I think we moved to a bus by the end of the first record, which was 2001.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was like 5 years in vans. It's
kind of fun though.
No iPhones.
Oh,
think about that.
Oh, true.
No maps.
Well, do you have like a map, like a physical map out?
Like, yeah, like
you're taking turns driving.
A road atlas. Yeah. I used to drive. Me and our other friend who was like our tour manager, sound. You know how you do. You're just like, you can do sound and tour manage.
And lights at the same time, surely.
Yeah. So I used to drive, but I was one of the main drivers. We just have a road atlas.
Would you just drive for like 12 hours and then be like, right, time to get on stage and sing?
Yeah, sometimes. It depends. Like,
oh my God.
If you had a flat tire or you had anything go wrong. The other thing is when we were touring with road atlases, you'd miss a turn and you'd be off course by like an hour or two, depending on like what part of the country you're in.
Probably wouldn't even know for a bit.
For a long time. And you'd be like, wait, where did I miss this? And it's like dark in the Midwest, driving overnight, you know? So it was like a whole different experience touring back then, but it was still expensive.
Yeah.
Those shows on those little tours, and we did a bunch of those little tours, you weren't making much each show. And hotels weren't, you were literally just doing like Red Roof Inns and like these little motels for like $20 rooms and sharing, you know, you'd get 4 rooms and you were budgeting every dollar. Especially because we started from zero and you're just trying to stay at zero and not go into debt trying to like tour.
Yeah.
And like Warped Tour, all that. We did all that, but it was you were always just trying to break even on tour. And then we got this band MXPX took us out on tour. And that was like our first really big, extensive US tour where it was like sold out shows, 2,000-3,000 people. And I feel like that's where like our touring live kind of culture tipped. And then we started headlining our own shows after that.
Yeah.
Doing 1,500 to 2,000 people. And it just, you have to tour and grow the live audience. You don't just get a live audience.
You also need the practice. You need to do small shows because you're just chucked on a massive show and you're like, well, I've got to learn how to play this part in front of everybody. How to fill this stage. Yeah.
And what if something goes wrong? If you haven't done 1,000 shows and something cuts out during your live show on a big stage,
it's going to be obvious.
You don't have the muscle memory to just like work through it.
Yeah.
And
100.
It's interesting. We were talking about that. We philosophize a lot about what we think artists need to succeed at every level. And I do think that you have to go through every level to succeed. When an artist gets thrown on the big stage and they haven't done 1,000 shows, it can fall apart and they can have a really bad moment that stays in everybody's memory as their first impression. Because, you know, it's first impressions always, right? But you want your first impression in front of 25 people. There's room there.
And they're also like, oh, it's endearing. It's your first show.
Exactly.
It's nice. Whereas like artists that blow up, like TikTok artists blowing up and then getting chucked on a stage. People like, they're not a real artist because they can't perform. But it's like, you have to acknowledge that they've never performed before.
But that first impression sticks sometimes.
It does.
And then that's the reputation.
I mean, I'm, guilty of doing it too.
How would you define your introduction to the world? Was it through social media? Has it been just, Australia has a much cooler, I think, taste. And I think it feels to me more organic, even in the pop world. It's just still feels more organic than like what I think is available and possible in the US. You can construct a pop artist and put him out there and make it go viral.
You can't do that in Oz.
You can't do that.
People can tell like straight away.
Much harder on their artists in Australia.
Yeah, definitely.
It's hard in Australia to make it.
It is. It's hard because you've gotta be cool, but you can't look like you're trying to be cool, and you can't get too big, but you can't stay cool. Small, and you can't move to America, but you can't stay. It's this really weird anomaly.
You're damned if you do. You're damned if you don't.
Exactly. You have all these big artists that like have to leave to actually get success, but then get shunned when they come back because they're like, well, you
have to stick through it.
Yeah.
And then somewhere on the other side of that, everyone's just like, oh yeah, you've been big forever. And you're like, no, you guys didn't talk to me for 10 years.
No, literally. That's like Kylie Minogue, Troye Sivan, like all these people had to leave. But then you've got like Spacey Jane's like one of the biggest bands in Australia right now. But you say that name Spacey out of Jane. Oz and nobody like, you know, they're just starting.
I don't know Spacey Jane.
They're really cool. They're really cool. Very like Aussie. Yeah, it's
But
great.
I know Australia, so I
you understand it. Like you spend a lot of time there, right?
I love it for that. And I get just as frustrated as any Australian artist with some of the behaviors, but I also love it. So it's endearing at the same time. And I know I've been going to Australia for 23 years. And it's like home away from home in a lot of ways. But I think because I'm not Australian, I get away with a lot more.
That's true.
There.
Yeah, they're less
because I'm not Aussie. They are. And then in some ways, yeah, I love it to death. It's like my favorite place in the world.
I remember I thought you were Australian.
Yeah.
For ages. Because it's rare that people become like big in Australian culture when they're not Aussie.
Like in an Aussie way.
Yeah, in an Aussie way. That's exactly it.
Like in the living room. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like and I feel Australian a little. All my best friends are all Australian. It's crazy how many Australians are in my life. It's ridiculous. And Australians find each other all over the world.
Oh yeah, you can like
anywhere.
Sense it's like a whale.
Yeah,
you can
like,
hear that from a mile away.
It's funny because if I'm traveling anywhere in the world, I'm always running into Australians, and it's great. There's like an Aussie way with the artists that I find, because I know so many Australian artists that are head and shoulders above. They just outclass other musicians, other songwriters. I mean, guitar players, drummers. In order to become a professional in Australia in the arts, you have to just be so good and not promote it.
Yeah.
And so it's different in America. We're self-promoting if we're bad. Like,
yeah,
I gotta be playing drums for 2 years and be promoting myself as like the best drummer in the world.
Yeah, fully.
Right. In Australia, Drum Prodigy has been playing since he was 2 years old. He's all right. Yeah, he's okay.
Yeah.
He's pretty good. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
But so I know so many artists that in Australia and from Australia that like I feel like they don't get the accolades at home that they should because it's just not the way. The second that
you're the best, you're overrated.
Yeah.
And if you're coming up, you're not that good. So nobody wins. It's weird.
And yet it's kind of what makes me love it because there's just this way that like it just is how it is, and it builds character. There's a character to it that I like. Chase Atlantic, you know Chase Atlantic?
Yeah.
They're so Australian.
Yeah.
They live here because they have to because of tour, because they're always on the road. But they live in Australia too. It's kind of like you. Like I don't think they're ever not going to live in Australia, but they have to live here because there's no way they could tour and afford. You
can't.
Like, at this stage, they have a big touring operation and it's a lot of people, and like I don't know how they would do it if they were in Australia.
Yeah. There's also so many times that you can tour 5 states.
Yeah.
Like, I've only been touring for like 3 or 4 years, but like even then you're like, yeah, I've done the rounds quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Played them all.
Yeah.
When did you start?
I started writing when I was like 13.
Right.
Like in a studio that I found, and then I met my manager there like randomly, and then he was my singing teacher for like 3 years, and like I was slowly writing, and then he was sort of like, I want to manage you. I've been wanting to manage an artist for ages. And then I don't know, it happened really slowly, and I don't think I realized that anything was happening just because I was like, yeah, I'm just doing my thing. And I think he did a good job at protecting me back then, of just like, he didn't put any expectation. He wasn't like, you're going to do this, you're going to meet this label rep. He was just like, just write for a bit. And then when it's right, it's right. And I didn't release anything until I was like 18, which I'm pretty grateful for.
That's good.
That I didn't do it too young.